48 hours later, my second time in combat. We go out and we're just doing a presence patrol. We come across a child's backpack on the side of the road. Imagine just like a pink, like Dorey the Explorer type backpack. Had a bomb in it. The dog caught it, blew it in place. So this big explosion goes off. We blow the charge. At this point, now the Taliban know exactly where we are. And for whatever reason, this day, they decided to come out and fight. We intercepted radio traffic that they were going to come up and they were going to ambush us because they knew the route that we were walking on. And so platoon leader and platoon chief, they were like, nah, we're going to get there before them and we're going to ambush them. We get in position before the Taliban show up. We get there, we get to this tree line, we line up, we're on the tree line, we're sitting there, we're waiting, and then all of a sudden you start seeing movement in this tree line that's maybe 25 yards away from us, the next tree line over. And everyone's real quiet and we're sitting there and we're waiting. So my squad leader takes a 40-millimeter grenade launcher, shoots the tree. Then I start hearing screaming from my left. And I was like, oh, that's the blood-curdling scream of somebody who's been. Fast forward 48 hours. Let me tell you the story of my second time in combat.
48 hours later.
48 hours later, my second time in combat. My second mission ever. We go out and we're just doing a presence patrol. We come across a child's backpack on the side of the road. Imagine just like a pink, like Dorey the Explorer type backpack. I don't know if it was actually Dorey the Explorer, but it was like a little girl's backpack. Had a bomb in it. The dog caught it. So we blew it in place. We call it bipping it. So we blew it in place. So this big explosion goes off. We blow the charge, blow the IED. At this point, now the Taliban know exactly where we are. And for whatever reason, this day, they decided to come out and fight. We intercepted radio traffic that they were going to come up and they were going to ambush us because they knew the route that we were walking on. And so our platoon leader and platoon chief, they made this awesome, badass call. They were like, nah, we're going to get there before them and we're going to ambush them. So normally when you're on a patrol and you're going through a town or a village, you're walking just sort of at a nice leisurely pace. You're just your head's on a swivel. You're constantly looking around. They were like, no, we're going to get ahead of these guys. So we started sprinting. We're sprinting as fast as we can through these villages to get to, I don't know exactly how they knew where the ambush was going to come from. I wasn't on that side of the intel things, but they knew exactly, our squad leader somehow knew exactly where the ambush was going to come from. We get in position before the Taliban show up. We get there, we get to this tree line, we line up, we're on the tree line. I lay out extra ammunition. Our squads are all lined up. I'm on the farthest squad on the right. We're sitting there, we're waiting. And then all of a sudden you start seeing movement in this tree line that's maybe 25 yards away from us, the next tree line over. And everyone's real quiet and we're sitting there and we're waiting. And my squad leader, his job was to initiate the ambush because we were the farthest ones back. So as soon as we were in position, we could initiate the ambush if the Taliban came in. So my squad leader, he sees a Taliban guy right across the field from us, 25 yards away, takes a 40-millimeter grenade launcher, shoots the tree right next to this guy, and basically blows this Taliban guy's head off. And then that was the signal to fire. So we all instantly open fire and just start raking this tree line with machine gun fire. I was a machine gunner at the time on that mission. And so I have 200 rounds and I'm just raking this tree line right at like chest level. And other guys are doing that. And we also started firing CS gas into the tree line to get the Taliban to run out. And so we fired CS gas in there. Well, the Taliban, I don't know how they survived, but they immediately started returning fire. So there's bullets coming back at us. I think they're just kind of firing wildly, but there's bullets flying past us. So there's like little pieces of like branches and twigs and stuff like falling on me as I'm firing because there's bullets, coming back. And the Taliban in the middle, I think they all got killed. So the Taliban to the left and to the right, they tried to flank our position and tried to attack. So our guys on the left and our guys on the right are just dropping Taliban at point blank range, like 10 yards away, just boom, 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 just stacking these guys' bodies. And then because they're also running away from the CS gas. And so then the wind shifts, so we're kind of getting hit with the CS gas too. So I'm like sitting there choking and like crying on this CS gas in the middle of this gunfight. Anyway, we call a ceasefire. The last of the Taliban guys are killed. Then I start hearing screaming from my left, and I was like, oh, that's the blood-curdling scream of somebody who's been shot. And it was one of our Afghan allies. He had been shot like 4 or 5 times, like in the crotch and like the hips area when the Taliban had done that thing. So it's like maybe 50 meters to my left. And so he's wounded. So our medics start working on him, and we didn't know. I think there were still a couple of Taliban guys in that far tree line, so we're still taking some pot shots. But now we have to get this guy evacuated, and so we move back a couple of tree lines. We move back 2 tree lines, and as we're moving back 2 tree lines, we call in airstrikes on the tree line that the Taliban had been on. So we had these A-10s come in out of nowhere, and they're just just blowing up this tree line. Yeah, it was great. So we move back we move back 2 tree lines. We set up a perimeter, and then so the Taliban stopped fighting, right? And so we're in this perimeter waiting for the helicopters to come. Maybe they'll be here in 20, 30 minutes, whatever. Not a super long flight. Our medics have stabilized the patient. They've got him on meds. So we're just on security. So my job was to hold security to the south. And there was an exposed position. It's difficult to explain the battlefield geometry, but basically there was an exposed position to the south that you can only have one guy on kind of in the middle of a field to watch the southern position. So I volunteered to go out there because I was like, okay, I'm the new guy. My job is to get shot if someone's going to get shot today, right? So I go out there to this little area. Even the guys in the tree line are kind of like looking over at me. They're like shaking their heads, like laughing, like, it sucks to be you. And I was like, all right, like it is what it is. So I go there, and all of a sudden we start getting radio chatter, and we hear the Taliban like, hey, we're going to attack from the south. The Americans, they're in a perimeter. We hear helicopters. We're going to attack them from the south. And I think the Taliban knew that we could hear them.
And that's you.
And that's me. I'm the dude on the south. And so they literally, the other SEALs, they radio over and they're like, yo, Mattos, you copying that there's, they're coming from the south. That's you. And I was like, yep, got it. So I like literally took my weapon off safe, and I was just sitting there, waiting. And so I see in front of me maybe 75 yards ahead of me, 50, 75 yards ahead of me, there's another like small tree line, and there's like a couple buildings over there, Afghan huts, and all of a sudden, sure enough, I start seeing heads. I see a couple of heads bobbing up and down in this tree line. And at that point, I could have fired, but I was like, no, I need to see a weapon. Because they've been trained, they've been drilled. That's drilled into your head 1,000 times. Do not shoot till you see a weapon. You shoot at weapons. You shoot at weapons. Like, you don't just shoot at people unless you need to make a value judgment, a value call. So I'm sitting there. I see these heads moving toward the edge of the tree line, and they're going to get in position to attack me. And I'm waiting. I've got the finger on the trigger. I'm looking down my scope, and it's like a 4x zoom on the scope. And then out into the clearing, running straight at me, are 2 little girls. One's like maybe 5, the other one's like maybe 8, just little girls. And they are weeping. They are screaming. They are weeping, like there's tears running down their face. And both of them are wearing the exact same kind of backpack that we had just blown up an hour earlier. Now, I don't know for sure that these girls were suicide bombers, but the Taliban said they were attacking from the south. These girls are wearing the same exact kind of backpack that we had just blown up. The Taliban knows we just blew up these kind of backpacks, and now there's these 2 little girls running at me, and they're terrified, and they're horrified. The one little girl is kind of holding the other girl's hand, and they're running right at me. So I start screaming at them instantly. I'm like, get away, get away. I don't speak any, I don't speak their language. So I was just like screaming at them. I was like waving at them like, get away, get away. And I'm not taking my finger off the trigger. Like, I'm aimed at the one little girl's head, the taller of the little girls. I'm aimed right at her forehead. Right at her face, and I'm like screaming. Her whole face is just right there in my eye, and I'm like, get away, get away, get away. And I see these backpacks, and they're bouncing, and these girls, they kept on running at me, and I'm like screaming at them. I'm like, I don't have time to like do warning shots. This all happens in a matter of like 5 seconds, right?
Does it feel like 5 seconds?
No, it feels like forever, but it's like your heart, in that moment you hear your heart's like boom, 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 like I'm about to shoot this little girl. So the little girl, she sort of crossed the line that I was comfortable with, and I was like, I'm going to have to shoot this little girl.
How close is she?
She's, I don't know, maybe 40 yards at this way, 30, 40 yards. I don't remember. It's difficult to say, but I was like, I have to shoot her now. But I was like, I'm going to wait a little bit. If she blows up right now, I'm the only one that's going to get hurt. My team's not going to get hurt. If she comes another 5 yards closer, now my team's going to get hurt. I have to shoot her. So I made the decision in my head. She gets up to that line. I make the decision in my head. Okay, I'm going to kill her. I'm going to shoot. And so I start to squeeze on the trigger. I'm waving, and I'm like pleading with this girl to stop.
You're waving while you're
yes, because I'm laying down. I'm laying down on the ground. So with a machine gun on a bipod. So I'm laying on the ground, watching her, and I'm waving my left arm, and I'm like, get away, and I'm just screaming at her. Eventually, the girl stops. She finally sees me, looks straight down my scope. She stops, looks straight down my scope, and she knows like I'm going to shoot her. Like she knows she's dead. And I just started just screamed one more time, like, get away, get away, get away. And then she grabbed the other little girl, turned around, and ran away. I had literally already gone through the mental decision. I'd already made the decision I'm going to kill her. But I didn't have to at the very last. Like, I mean, it sounds overly dramatic. Sounds like a movie, but it's like, no. Three more steps. I would have shot her, and I would have had to. And actually, after this mission, I was talking with a higher ranking guy kind of about what had happened. And he said, next time you shoot. He said, next time, don't wait. He's like, next time you shoot. And I was like, roger that. So I even got like a mild reprimand for not shooting, right?
But you had, hold on a minute.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, I'm going off how you just described it, as insane as that is, and obviously there's emotions going on there like you described, but like you were still analytical. Like you're giving me yardage markers. You're giving me, okay, I got my line at like 35, right where she's on it. So it's not like you let her get to 25 or something. She got right to your line. You were about to do it, and she turned around. Maybe I shouldn't say I'm surprised you got a reprimand, but I'm like mildly like surprised that you got a reprimand for that.
The reason I was reprimanded, and it wasn't like a harsh reprimand. It was like they realized like, yeah, this is a tough situation, dude. Like, you know, but like then they were like, basically, you made the wrong call. Next time, shoot. So the reason for that was I was just sort of putting these arbitrary lines in my head as this was happening. Right. Keep in mind, this happens over the course of like 6 seconds, 6 seconds. I'm making this arbitrary line where I'm like, if this girl blows up, I'm going to get hurt, but my team's not going to get hurt. As soon as she's going to cross the line to where my team is going to get hurt because they're off to my left flank, that's when I got to go. So if she blows up, I'm okay with me getting hurt. I'm not okay with her getting hurt. The problem, though, is if I get hurt, my team's not going to get hurt trying to get me out. That's the real problem. So that's why they were like, dude, you can't even let yourself get hurt because now, you know. So I was in that situation, and
48 hours, you're in an intense firefight where you're getting shot at left and right, and they have to basically have like the fucking Wild West unit come up on the top for you and your guys to get out of there. Then 48 hours after that, you're faced with the decision with your fingers pulling. You said you were pulling down.
I had pressure on the trigger. So it was a machine gun, so you got to put some significant pressure onto the trigger. It's not like a nice light trigger like for a pistol. So you have to actually put some real squeeze on it. So I took the slack out, as it's called, and it was ready to go. I just needed like a few more pounds of pressure.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Like, you're blessed in the trials of fire like that. That is probably. I'm trying to think. That might be the wildest opening to a military combat career I've heard.
Yeah, it was.
That's nuts.
Very, very weird. The rest of my deployment was sort of standard combat stuff. Those first two were like sort of the craziest of that.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.